In the morning light, the space on my nightstand looked like a pulled tooth, pink, empty, a little raw. Last night, I'd left my designer bag there, tucked neatly next to my lamp and a glass of water, the strap folded just so, the way you might tuck in a child. It was the first big thing I'd bought for myself after a promotion, ridiculous and impractical. Yes, but also a promise. I'd layer the receipt under the dust bag like a certificate of belief. Now there was just an oval of dust and the faintest crescent of indentation in the wood, as if the bag had only stepped out for air. I went through the motions. Under the bed, behind the chair, in the closet, under the pile of clean laundry I kept meaning to fold. Nothing. The dust bag was there, flat as a lie. I walked to the kitchen with my stomach in my throat. My parents were already dressed the way people dress when they've decided something. My mother in a cardigan that meant reason. My father in a shirt that meant final. Morning, my mother said brightly, which meant there was news. My father folded his newspaper as if closing a file. "We lent your bag to Layla," he said. 4 words, an entire cathedral shattering softly. "She needed it for a work event," my mother added, as if lending a toothbrush. I waited for the rest, the punchline, the apology, the suggestion that they'd texted me and I'd somehow missed it. Nothing. My mind flip-booked through memories of Layla, sleepovers, shared eyeliners, her laugh like the last step on a staircase. We'd been good once, the kind of good that made you think ownership could be communal. But that was college. This bag was not communal. "You took it from my room," I said, voice steady in the way bridges are steady while you're walking. "You lent something that wasn't yours to lend." My father quoted the family mantra, "In this house, we help each other." My mother nodded. "We'll get it back tonight. Don't make this bigger than it is." I looked at the empty spot on the nightstand again, the little oval of dust speaking louder than anyone. It wasn't about the bag, not completely. It was about the unlocked door, the assumption, the ease with which my mind became ours, only when convenient. I took out my phone and opened the email from the boutique, the purchase confirmation with the serial number and the embossed certificate image attached. I photographed the indentation on the wood, the dust bag, the shelf where the authentication card had lived. Then I texted Layla, "Hey, my parents say they lent you my bag. Please bring it back today. I'll be home at 6. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. When they returned, she wrote, "Can we talk?" And I thought, we will. But first we'll count what's missing. Layla arrived at 6:15 with the careful smile of someone bringing flowers to a fire. She stood on the porch in a blazer I recognized from our interview days, the bag slung over her shoulder like a tame animal. The sight of it jolted me, relief and anger braided tight. I opened the door and stepped aside. My parents hovered in the hallway with expressions that said, "See." "You look great," my mother said. Layla glanced at her, then at me, and the smile thinned. "Can we talk in your room?" she asked. "No," I said. "Kitchen table." We sat. I put the dust bag and authentication card on the table like exhibits. Up close, I noticed a faint dark crescent on the leather near the base. A scuff. My chest went cool. "They told me you offered," Layla began, eyes flicking to my parents, "that you said it was fine." I didn't turn. "I didn't," I said. "They didn't ask. They took it." Layla's face flushed. "I had a client event and my boss. Look, I know how it sounds." She trailed off, reaching for the strap. "No," I said again, softer this time. I lifted the bag, set it on a tea towel, and photographed the scuff, the bottom corners, the hardware. I pulled up the boutique email and matched the serial to the card like a ritual. "This is mine," I said, not as an accusation but as a line. My father cleared his throat. "Let's not litigate a favor." I met his gaze. "It wasn't a favor. A favor has consent." My mother's voice went syrupy. "Sweetheart, we've lent things our whole lives." "You've lent your things," I said, "and sometimes mine," when saying no felt like treason. Layla swallowed. "I'm sorry," she said, and for a second it sounded like she meant it. "I shouldn't have taken it without asking you." You thought the fastest way through an awkward need was to skip my answer," I said. "We've all done versions of that, but not with this." I slid a small printed sheet across the table, a simple borrowing agreement I drafted on my lunch break, ridiculous and absolutely necessary. No lending of personal property without owner's consent. If damaged, repair or replace. 3 lines, boxes to tick. Layla blinked at the paper, then at me. Seriously, it's not about the paper, I said. It's about changing the reflex. She signed. My parents didn't. This is our house, my father said. And this is my room, I replied. So let's draw a map. I took a pen and on the back of an envelope sketched a floor plan of trust. Doors that stay closed unless knocked. Items that don't move unless asked. Words that mean exactly what they say. Layla stood, clutching her signed sheet like a hall pass. Can we be okay? She asked. I looked at the scuff, tiny and undeniable. We can be honest, I said. Okay comes later if it comes. I carried the bag back to my nightstand, set it on the oval of dust it left behind, and felt something settle. Ownership, not of leather but of boundaries. In the days after the bag incident, I became a clerk of my own life. I made a folder labeled borrowing and slid inside a copy of a signed agreement, the boutique receipt, and photos of the scuff. I added a note to the authentication card, loaned without consent on date, returned with minor wear. Not because I planned to litigate, but because paper is calmer than memory. I also left a post-it on my nightstand that said ask first, a reminder to myself, too, that boundaries are a two-way street. My mother hovered in my doorway the way she used to when I was sick, half worried, half anxious to be useful. It was just a bag, she said, which is what people say when what's at stake is not a bag. It was a pattern, I said, and a chance to stop it. She stood there, cardigan wrapped tight, the apology warring with the habit. We've always shared, she tried again. We've always blurred, I corrected. I want to unblur. She nodded, a little lost. Teach me. So I made a household rule sheet, absurd and revolutionary in equal measure. Ask to borrow. Respect to know. Return in the condition it was taken, or replace. If it's sentimental, it's off limits. I taped it to the fridge with an orange magnet shaped like a peach. My father rolled his eyes and then, to his credit, read it. He even added a line, knock before entering rooms. It felt like a small door opening. Layla texted the next day. I call the boutique. They can buff out the scuff. I'll cover it. I replied, thank you. I appreciate it. And I meant what I said. We can talk, but we do it with a map now. We met at a coffee shop that smelled like toasted almonds and new beginnings. Layla apologized without a parade of excuses. I told her about the boundary sheet on our fridge. She laughed and said she needed one in her own apartment. I didn't realize how much I equate access with closeness, she said. Like, the more I can take, the more I belong. I stirred my latte. Maybe the opposite is true, I said. The more we ask, the more we belong. She nodded like she wanted to believe it. We hugged, a small, honest thing that didn't fix everything but didn't pretend to either. When I got home, my bag sat on the nightstand like a quiet verdict. Not a trophy, not a hostage, just a thing that was mine, in a room that was mine, in a house that was learning how to be ours. On Saturday, I took the bag back to the boutique, the way you take a watchmaker a clock your grandfather left you. The associate, immaculate, kind, precise, ran a gloved finger over the scuff and nodded. Surface only. We can buff it and condition the leather. Back by Tuesday. I signed the service slip and watched her tuck the bag into its soft cocoon. Walking out empty-handed felt strangely liberating, like proof that possession and peace weren't the same thing. I texted Layla a photo of the receipt. Got it covered, she replied, and thank you for letting me fix what I could. Back home, the nightstand looked less accusatory, more available. I put a small tray there, keys, a pen, a note that said ask first rewritten on thicker paper. My mother hovered in the doorway again, but this time she knocked first and waited. I bought labels, she said, holding up a little stack. For the kitchen. Thought we could organize together. We spent the afternoon sticking ours on the communal olive oil and yours on my spices, laughing at how domestic diplomacy looked like pantry art. My father installed a proper latch on my door. Not a fortress, just a click you can hear from the hallway. He tested it twice, then said, not quite looking at me, I didn't realize how often I assumed access. I'm adjusting. That night, I ran a little experiment called borrowing done right. I texted my mother, can I borrow your silk scarf for Monday? Totally fine if not. She sent back a heart and a photo of 3 scarf options like we were shopping in our own house. Layla, for her part, sent me a screenshot of her phone, a new shared note titled borrow log with boxes to tick, item, date, return by condition. I'm starting a culture of checkout, she wrote. Even if it's just me. We were all, in our clumsy, hopeful ways, turning a one-time argument into a blueprint. It didn't feel punitive. It felt like friendship and family rendered in checkboxes and knocks. On Tuesday, the boutique called. The bag looked like itself again, only wiser. I set it back on the nightstand, not like a relic, but like a tool I could use without bracing for a fight. Later, my father paused in the doorway and said, "There's a neighborhood fundraiser next week. If you're comfortable, would you lend the bag to your mother? She'll ask you herself." My mother appeared behind him, already smiling, already ready to hear no. I realized then that the point wasn't to never share. It was to make sharing a choice, not a raid. I said, "Ask me on Friday. Let's see how the week goes." She laughed. "Deal." Friday began with a small, definitive sound, the click of the latch. I woke up lighter, as if that sound, tested twice by my father, had organized not just the door, but something inside my chest. At breakfast, the coffee tasted the same as always, but the table wasn't the same. It was an island of visible agreements. My mother spun the sugar jar labeled ours, proud of her neat handwriting. I stirred my coffee and caught my reflection in the spoon, sleek, intact, restored like the boutique polished bag resting on my nightstand. The setup was simple. Today she would ask. Today I would answer. On my way to work, I opened Layla's borrow log and just for fun, logged a symbolic loan. I let myself half an hour of my lunch break to walk with no destination. Item, time. Return by after step 3. Condition, better than when it left. I laughed out loud. It wasn't just about bags and scarves. It was about quitting the open field raids we make on others, and sometimes on ourselves. The city seemed labeled now too. Green light hours. Hurry yours. Sidewalk shared. On the way back, my phone buzzed. Layla, AIB test. Asking first works better than apologizing later. I replied with a heart and a photo of the latch. Caption, the sound of freedom. The conflict came not as a shout, but as the impatient whisper of habit. That afternoon, I met my mother in the hallway, her shoulders wrapped in an old cardigan, her hands fidgeting in her pockets. She looked at my room, at the bag sitting in its modest place of honor, and for a second I saw the old reflex, the impulse to just grab it, quick, because it's only for a minute. But she breathed, tapped lightly on the doorframe, and waited. "Can I ask now?" she said. "Or would you rather I text?" My heart pulled two opposite memories, the sting of leather scraped raw, and the boutique clerk's gentleness promising to bring back its shine. I wanted this moment to shine too. The turning point arrived in a question with soft edges. "I have a dinner for the bazaar committee tomorrow," she said. "And I thought, if you're comfortable, would you lend me the bag? If not, that's okay." There were no detours, no invisible prices. I could say no and the world wouldn't collapse. For the first time, my yes would mean something because it could have been a no. I asked her about the dress, the nail polish color, the route she'd take to the church hall. I listened, laughed at the names of the raffle desserts. Aunt Norma's surprise still sounded risky, and pictured the bag sitting beside a plate of brigadeiros, brave and scathed. The quiet climax came when I carried the bag to her doorway and placed it on the bed atop a soft cotton scarf, as if staging a scene. "Let's test our system," I said. "Send the request through the borrow log." Her phone pinged, then mine. Item bag. Return by Sunday, 6 p.m. condition as received. I hit accept. The app's click harmonized with the latch's click, a domestic duet. When she smiled, something old in both of us loosened. My father, from the hallway, let out a cheerful nice that seemed to screw the ceiling into place. That night, I rewrote the note on my nightstand. To ask isn't to seek permission to exist. It's to invite someone else to exist with you. The house felt airier, things less possessive of us. I fell asleep knowing exactly what I owned and what I offered, by choice, including the right to change my mind. And just so you know, I'm a young woman, still learning how to lend without losing myself. Sunday arrived with the smell of cake drifting through the hallway and a good kind of emptiness on the hook. The bag was still with her. I woke before the alarm, waiting the way you do for test results, and reread the thick note on my nightstand. To ask is to invite someone else to exist with you. I smoothed the paper flat with my palm, as if pressing it into memory. At 5:47, I heard the elevator hum. At 5:52, the key turned. At 5:55, 3 light knocks, 1 small pause, our new rhythm. "Come in," I called. She stepped inside, glowing with leftover laughter and the shimmer of other people's stories. The bag hung from her arm like it had learned its way home. She set it down on the bed, right where it had rested before, atop the same cotton scarf. "It was a hit," she said, unlocking her phone to show me pictures. Raffle tables, plates of brigadeiros, the bag tucked in the corner of one frame. Quiet, composed, sure of itself. Layla had texted too. So? How did the culture of checkout hold up in the real world? I snapped a photo of the door frame, still bearing faint fingerprints from practice knocks, and replied, "Case study complete." The conflict arrived in a whisper of hesitation. An old neighbor asked where I bought it. My mother said softly. And before I could stop myself, I almost said mine. I liked how it sounded, but then I corrected her. "It's my daughter's." I felt the sting, and then the warmth of honesty. I could have brushed it off, but we were learning something subtler than forgiveness, how to name a truth without turning it into guilt. Then she reached into the bag and pulled out a small matte keychain, shaped like a miniature handle. "Picked this up at the bazaar," she said. "Not a trade, not an apology. Just a reminder that I know whose things are whose when they're with me." We laughed, and I rolled the metal between my fingers. It was cool, solid, alive with meaning. On my phone, the borrow log was still open, one blinking line waiting for closure. At 5:58, she tapped returned. At 5:59, I tapped received. 2 clicks, soft and final, the duet of app and latch. My father appeared in the hallway, holding a screwdriver, grinning. "Tighten the latch a bit," he said. "Smooth as butter now." His timing was perfect, and we all knew it. I opened the bag and checked the lining. No dust, no scratches, only a faint scent of powder in celebration. I slipped the little keychain inside, a quiet promise, and set the bag back on the nightstand, not as an altar, but as a companion waiting patiently to be useful again. Then I rewrote the note. To lend is to trust the road an object takes to return. "Thank you for asking," I told her, "and for bringing it back." She smiled. "Thank you for trusting me." The room felt lighter, like air had found its proper shape. And so it's clear, I am a young woman, still learning how to lend without losing myself.